Hello class and welcome to week 3. What should we take away from chapter 1? Well, chapter 1 defines the terms morals and ethics as they are used in the context of this course. The terms are described as relating to standards of human behavior. While generally both terms can be used interchangeably, there is, however, a subtle difference worth noting. Morals or morality refers to the personal judgment of the act. For instance, is the act of lying good or is it bad? In this context, the judgment of the act does not reflect the use of a principle one might use to examine it. Our individual moral judgment of what's right or wrong may say that lying is always bad, bad most of the time, or just some of the time, or never bad. The ethical examination, however, relies on seeking to reflect on the principles upon which ethical systems are used to arrive at the moral decision. Are there times when lying is not always bad? Ask yourself, would you lie to save one's life, or would you kill one person to save 5 others? Remember the video on the start page from week 1? If you missed it, I've reposted it below. Please take some time to watch the video as it illustrates just how difficult it is to make decisions facing a moral dilemma. We'll deal more with ethical systems in Chapter 2. Chapter 1 also discusses the relationship between the law and ethics. Here it points out that although there is an overlap between the two are not always synonymous. The law is not always moral, nor is it fair. For instance, are you immoral if you don't follow an immoral law? Must you always follow an unjust law just because it's the law? A current example of this illustration or dilemma has been in the news for the last month. It has to do with a small Kentucky county where the county clerk refuses to sign marriage licenses to same-sex partners. While the recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling says that same-sex marriages are now the law of the land, the clerk's moral conscience, according to her, requires her to refuse signing any such marriage license or documents. Now here clearly is a moral dilemma arising out of one's conviction to follow natural law, some say biblical law, versus man-made law, referred to as positive law. You will read more about ethical systems in Chapter 2. In Chapter 1, you were introduced also to the term ethical dilemma. That is to say, any question in which you must make a decision about what to do when your choices are either unclear or the right choice is difficult because of the personal cost or consequences involved to you. For example, reflect for a moment on the dilemma presented at the beginning of Chapter 1 on page 2. The officer makes a traffic stop of a possible drunk driver. The dilemma is what happens when the driver turns out to be the officer's father. Should he arrest or not? Lastly, you were introduced to the ethical pyramid as one model for analyzing and resolving ethical dilemmas. Some examples of ethical issues in criminal justice that are always under scrutiny are racial, sexual orientation, or religious discrimination, death penalty, excessive use of force, racial profiling, sex offender registration, 3 strikes law, application of constitutional rights regarding the 4th and 5th Amendments, immigration, and the list goes on. Now, chapters 1 and 2 are foundational for upcoming discussions, so please make sure you spend additional time with the information contained in both of these chapters. Thanks for listening, and please continue by reviewing all material contained in modules week 3.